All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar. Thank you so much for being here. This webinar is titled Empowering Teens Online, Preventing Sextortion and Supporting Mental Health with Adele Taylor from No Filter. So before we get started, I just want to welcome you all to the webinar and um, introduce myself. I'm Lola Bessis. I'm the liaison manager at Digital for Good. And I want to share a little bit about Digital for Good and who we are. So we're a nonprofit that educates students and adults about digital citizenship, safety, wellness, and literacy through our programs and events. Digital for Good aims to celebrate youth innovation, empower student change makers, and promote digital safety. Digital for Good reaches thousands of students nationwide, and its impact is amplified even further by the Train the Trainer learning model featured in its educational program. This model empowers students with the tools and training needed to mentor their peers in the safe and responsible use of digital technology. At the foundation of Digital for Good's work is the idea that students are at the core of the solution to online toxicity when something happens on social media. The more we can do as administrators and educators to train and guide and support students, the more likely they are to take positive action. As a brief reminder before we get started with the webinar, the chat feature is open for comments and questions. There'll be some time for a Q&A at the end, so if you have questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat throughout and we'll answer them at the end. Now I'm going to introduce our speaker. So today we are joined with Adele Taylor. She is the Senior Manager at Youth Digital Programs and Partnerships. She's a passionate advocate for youth safety online as Youth Digital Program and Partnerships Senior Manager at Thorn, a nonprofit combating online child sexual abuse. Leading the No Filter initiative, she empowers young individuals to navigate the online world safely, fostering collaborations between youth and tech platforms. She holds a Bachelor of the Arts from Spelman College and a Master's in International Peace Studies from Trinity College, Dublin. Beyond Thorn, she founded Adele's Literacy Library, promoting global literacy, and serves as a board member for the GEM project, advocating for educational opportunities for youth. Embracing her love for books during global travels, Adele lives by the motto, be the change you want to see in the world. Over to you.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm really excited to be here today to chat. I know that I'm on East Coast and I know that it's 4 o'clock. So you're either just wrapping up school or maybe just, still in school. So please feel free to take all of this information. No need to kind of scribble everything down. Everything that you'll see here is actually already on our Pinterest board for both teachers and educators, as well as parents and caregivers. So today I am really excited because the conversation today is about a topic that unfortunately is very needed and much to talk about is sextortion. And you'll see to the right, I love a good interactive presentation. My teachers and educators on this call might be, with me on this, where it makes sense to have maybe a poll or some type of interactive feature. And so throughout this presentation, I will be asking you all a couple of different questions. And the first one I would love to know from you all, because I know we have a mix of parents on here, as well as teachers and educators, is what has been the biggest challenge for you specifically in discussing online safety or digital well-being with your child, your children, or your students. And hopefully this will make sure that you don't feel alone, that there actually are a lot of different challenges, from thinking of where do I even begin, what is maybe age appropriate, to is this going to be beneficial to my child. So go ahead and drop those in the Zoom chat. I would love to see those. I'm going to go ahead and move us on. And really quickly, the presentation today is only 20 minutes. It's a lot to go over, so I just want to quickly talk about No Filter, who we are, so you know the lens in which we're speaking. I'm specifically speaking from, and then I'll talk a little bit more about sextortion and going over it into some call to actions and what we're seeing from our research as well. So No Filter, as mentioned, is the prevention youth brand of Thorn. Thorn itself is a nonprofit organization that builds products and services to defend against child sexual abuse material online. And No Filter is an arm underneath Thorn that really focuses on the preventative approaches for youth specifically when it comes to digital safety. We have three main pillars. One of them is our empowerment pillar. And so we like to say, youth are online. And so obviously we need to have digital content that reaches youth where they are. So we create long form and short form videos talking about different digital safety topics, from the one we're talking about today, sextortion, to online grooming, digital well-being. And what's great about this empowerment pillar is that it really allows youth to not only feel like they're not alone and maybe not understanding these topics or conversations, but that it empowers them to want to have these conversations with their friends, or even their parents as well. We also know it's not enough just to meet youth where they are. We want to educate youth as well. So we have engaging resources like quizzes on our website. We have our youth council who creates resource guides and gives advice to other youth on our site, really making sure that not only youth are walking away with the appropriate skills they need to have a safe online experience, but also that they're going to do so in a way that is through the youth lens. And so one thing that's really unique about No Filter is that a lot of our content is either developed or implemented or put forth from a youth perspective and youth input knowledge to really make sure that they're understanding the language and the resources that we're putting out there. And then our last, but certainly not least important pillar is our embed pillar. It might be my favorite. Don't tell anybody that, but it might be my favorite because this is our chance where we get to talk to youth directly about what they're seeing in their online environments and what we can do from our preventative standpoint in building the right resources and tools. And so we have a Youth Innovation Council. I implore you to go on our website and learn more about them. They are absolutely phenomenal. They are about 18 youth from across the country who are with us for 9 months developing content, speaking directly with nonprofits, as well as other amazing tech platforms who are really focused on a safety by design approach. And it's really important that we're bringing youth voices to the table because they're the ones that we're ultimately trying to help build a better and safer online community for. So with that being said, that's a little bit about No Filter. I had the privilege of heading and spearheading that up. But today's conversation is all about sextortion. So before we get into it, I do just want to give a plug, a kind of a mental health resource check that please, if you need to go off camera or you need to take a moment, this might be a very hard topic for some. We do our best to try to make it as relatable as possible, but obviously this is hard to listen to and to maybe think through how youth are sometimes, unfortunately, sextorted online. So please take care of your mental health throughout this presentation. But before we go into some call to actions, some resources and tips for you all as parents, as well as teachers and educators, I really wanted just to ground us in what is sextortion, right? Because sometimes we hear about it and we might not be clear. Other times there's so many different, unfortunately, online abuses. And so it's hard to maybe keep track. And so I'm really going to take you through what is sextortion, what we're seeing from our research. But before we get into that, I have another fun drop-in chat moment for you all. I would love to know what resources and tools you think would be most helpful for youth to understand in preventing sextortion. So I know I have my teachers and educators on here. I would love to know from you all maybe what resources would be helpful, most beneficial to you as maybe you're talking about these things in your classroom or wanting to provide some tips or tricks. And then I would also love to hear from parents if you're thinking about having these conversations with your child or your children, what resources or tools would be helpful for you in making sure you're having those appropriate conversations. So the first thing I want to talk about is why we need to talk about sextortion. As you probably already know, sextortion, unfortunately, is on the rise. It's something very serious. And one of the things that I think stands out about sextortion, unlike other forms of online abuse, is how quickly it can escalate. When we talk about online grooming or maybe cyberbullying, what we're seeing is that the bad actors really take time to build a rapport with that youth. They are taking weeks, if not months, to really form a connection, so that youth feel comfortable and maybe sharing explicit imagery. But with sextortion, what we're seeing is youth being contacted, and within a matter of hours, if not a couple of days, things escalating extremely quickly, to the point where unfortunately it may result in suicide for youth. So it's something to keep in mind that sextortion has a different set of potential consequences because of how quickly it escalates. So obviously all of these different stats are important and talk about sextortion in a couple of different ways, from the survivor's perspective to how long the initial contact, to even 54% of youth disclosing to a family or a friend and what that means. But sextortion also takes form, and why it's so threatening is really thinking through that age of being 13 to 18 years of age. Being sexted online has a lot of shaming components for youth as well. They may feel scared about the consequences that they may face, whether it be from their teacher or from their parent or guardian. And as we know, youth have an extension of their identity online. It's not just when they're in their school environments. It's not just when they're in their after school or sports programs or extracurricular activities. It's now to interacting with these different people and their friends online. So it's really, when we're thinking about sextortion, really important to think about it from the perspective of a 13 to 18-year-old. Sextortion also falls under several different categories. Just for time purposes, I'm not going to go over every single category today in depth, but one of the sextortion categories that we hear a lot about is financial sextortion. And so financial sextortion is when a scammer threatens to release sexually explicit imagery of a child or a youth in exchange for money. And so this is, really thinking through, I'm going to release these photos, or I'm going to send these photos to everyone in your friends group or everyone at your school if you don't send me $100. And obviously, as you can imagine, that just escalates and grows even more, so that the bad actor can try to get as much financial compensation out of the youth as possible. We also have two other specific areas when we're talking about sextortion, and these two may not come up as often, or you may not hear about it as often as financial sextortion, but I do want to point them out. There is that offline ex-partner sextortion. So sextortion that's really dealing with retaliation or revenge. And that might be, an ex trying to get back at you, or something happening maybe offline in a school environment and now taking it online. And we also have sextortion as a result of grooming. I talked about it briefly the slide previously, but unlike grooming, where it might be weeks, if not months, of talking and building a rapport and building the trust, what sometimes we see is that when the youth doesn't or refuses to send even more imagery that they might have already sent, now you're seeing a case of online grooming go to maybe financial sextortion, where now that bad actor is saying that I will release these if you don't send me this or that. So that is sextortion in a nutshell. There's a lot more, and we have a lot more resources online, and also research too, if you're interested, on thorn.org. So I definitely implore you to go there. But it also is sometimes hard, right? Because we just talked about, oh my gosh, it's 54%. Kids are getting contacted within as little as a couple of hours. What can I do as a parent, caregiver? What can I do as an educator? So there's a couple of different things. And at No Filter, we like to say there's something called recognizing the signs, or recognizing when red flags arise specifically for youth. So in the chat, I have another opportunity. Would love to hear from you all. What are maybe some red flags you think youth might exhibit if they're being sexted or online? So again, thinking from that 13 to 18-year-old mentality, they're being contacted, someone is asking for explicit imagery or saying that they'll release it unless they send money or gifts. What are some maybe signs that you as an educator or parent or guardian might be on the lookout for? So as I mentioned, we have some unspoken signs. And one thing that I do like to call out here is that as much as we would like for youth to come forward instantly when something bad happens online, to be realistic, we also have to understand that that may not be the case. And I talked about earlier a lot of shame, a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety around being sex or online happens to youth. So there are certain behaviors that when you're thinking about a youth being sextorted, what might happen. The first sign is a sudden change in behavior or mood. Sometimes I know we like to say, oh, it's just them being a teenager, they just need their space. And sometimes that might be true, you might be right, but it can also be an indicator that something else is wrong. If your child or your children are normally very outspoken or they're very positive in nature, and all of a sudden you're seeing, signs of withdrawal from their friend group, anxiety, you're noticing that they might be a little bit more depressed. Extreme mood swings are also another maybe indicator that the child is usually maybe being secretive about something, they're upset, or they're even stressed after using their device. This is definitely a sign to maybe ask questions and see what's going on. On the other side, we have the complete avoidance of devices or social media. So I know this might be maybe a better red flag or a larger red flag. Youth love to be engaged on social media on their phone, whether it's because they love to game or they are maybe a part of their friend group online, whatever it may be. You might see all of a sudden that youth are removing themselves completely from their devices. They don't really want to be on their phones. They might not be on their computer unless it's just for homework. If they're part of maybe a family group that you all have, or you notice a friend group, but they're not, messaging with them, the avoidance of devices or social media is definitely a red flag that something might be wrong, that they're being harassed or threatened. There's also the unexplained request for money or gifts. And this is often one of another major red flag that kind of highlights the need to have a conversation with youth or with your youth or your child, is that it's not only money bad actors ask for, but sometimes it's gifts specifically. They might ask for the latest shoes that have just come out, or they might ask for something else of high value. And another indicator under this specific category is that maybe your child is now asking for things that they normally either would not ask for, or that they normally have no interest at all in possessing or having. And this obviously is because the perpetrator is demanding payment, whether it be financial or gifts. This is definitely something to look out for. And then obviously increase secrecy about online activity. You might walk in, your child or your children puts down their phone really quickly. They might close their laptop or shut down a window that they have open, because they don't want you to know what's going on. All of these are signs, potential signs that something is happening online. But whether a child is asking for help or you're noticing any of these signs or others, I definitely implore you all to approach the situation with empathy and address the situation. Again, one of the reasons why a lot of youth don't come forward is because they're scared. They're scared that they might have their phones removed, they may be cut off from their friend group, that, they're obviously get in trouble afterwards, whatever that punishment may be. But it's really important that the first priority is that we're approaching it with empathy for the child, and then also figuring out the next steps or building exit strategy to make sure that child is staying safe and that they also feel like, okay, this might have gotten out of control, but I know it's not my fault. Because again, what we're seeing with sextortion is unfortunately suicides as well because of that fear and that shame and that blame component. So, what can you do as a parent? What can you do as an educator? One of the biggest things we say is just starting early and talking often. And so, I would love to know from you all, at what age specifically do you think you need to be having these conversations about digital safety and digital well-being? And spoiler alert, it's not, 17, 18 years of age. It actually needs to start a lot younger. And one of the reasons why I hear, oh, I don't want to start until they're 15 or 16 or 17 is because oftentimes we have to have these very hard conversations, and it can be scary. We're adults, and I think we can all maybe attest that hearing words like financial sextortion and online grooming and imagery is just very jarring. And so we're trying to also protect our youth, but at the same time, we need to make sure that they are armed with the right resources and tools in order to know how to navigate these different situations. So one of the ways we approach it at No Filter is coming at it from less of a let's talk about sextortion or let's talk about online grooming to let's talk about digital mindfulness. And that is basically the practice of fostering a healthy and safe environment, not only for them, that individual in particular, but for their friends. So that can look like prioritizing your mental health. Maybe that means taking time away from your most used social media app, avoiding judgment or victim blaming, respecting digital consent, not sharing unless you've received consent from someone else. Again, not sharing your location, all of these different things is really looking at how youth are mindful online. And it's important to talk about because when we're talking about these other topics, such as sextortion, online grooming, cyberbullying, what we're really talking about at the heart of it is how youth are showing up online, not only for themselves, but for their peers as well. So making sure that youth know how to protect themselves, as I mentioned earlier, what is their exit strategy if something happens, but also making sure that youth know what to do, where to go, which resources, which people, and they feel comfortable in doing so. So there are a couple of mindfulness conversation topics that we always advocate for adults to have with youth. And so again, when we're talking about digital mindfulness, we're talking about how youth show up with a healthy, positive, safe mind when it comes to interacting online. So the first one is digital citizenship. And that's really thinking about how youth understand the responsibility of using technology safely, how they are integrating respect and integrity as well. And so, from a teacher, educator, or even a parent perspective, some of these conversation starters that you can have around digital citizenship can look like protecting your personal information. I know one of the biggest things we always say is if you're sharing your location, share it once you've already gone, you've left that state, you've left that country entirely, to obviously protect yourself. You're maybe familiarizing yourself with the platform safety tools. Sometimes it's easy to get excited because you've been invited by your friend to jump on a different platform altogether, but each platform has their own set of rules, their own set of settings as well. And so some of them may be a little bit more protective in nature. So making sure that your child understands how to, again, set themselves up for using technology responsibly. We also have safe self-expression. This is extremely important. And I think this is something that a lot of youth are mentioning now that we're in an election year and that's coming up, is how you can still express yourself in an authentic way, but also a healthy and a safe way, and making sure that you are prioritizing your well-being and managing potential risk. So again, this may look like having a conversation about what you're sharing with your friends online, maybe being empathetic if you see something you don't agree with instead of commenting in a negative way, spotting red flags when you're connecting with when youth are connecting with other people, and really making sure you know who you're talking to online. And then again, understanding platform guidelines about sharing as well. The third one is around digital consent. We talk about consent a lot. Oftentimes it's, hey, I need you to sign this permission slip to go on this field trip, or I need your child to understand what they might be getting in trouble for. But there's also digital consent and making sure youth understand that they need to set and respect not only their own boundaries, but also those of their friends. Again, we live in a digitalized, globalized world where technology is at the tip of your fingertips. And while that is good and it connects us, it also allows for boundaries to maybe slightly be a little bit grayed. And so making sure you're having conversations about collecting and sharing information. If your youth is at a party, what does that look like? And making sure that you're sharing appropriate imagery. Blocking and reporting people who are either disrespecting your online boundaries or that you may not know. And then again, empowering that youth to really speak up if something happens, whether that is offline in a school environment that happened online or just online, but really making sure they're speaking up, not only blocking and reporting, but also bringing it to the attention of a trusted adult. And then last but certainly not least, we have the upstander. So encouraging youth to actively stand up against online harassment and cyberbullying. And I do want to really clarify this because it's not asking youth to, call bad actors out, but to bring it to the attention of the platform. So this is going to look more like reporting content that they see that is negative in behaviors or approaches or bad actors to the platform. It might mean, intervening and talking to a trusted adult if they see that their friend is going through something online and bring it to their attention as well. Really being an upstanding citizen, not just offline, but online as well, in the ways in which youth are approaching it. So that is a very, very quick high level overview. I think I have about 2 minutes left. So I just really quickly want to elevate some youth focused resources we have. A lot of the different graphics you saw throughout this presentation, you can find on our website. We have different quizzes around sextortion, but we also have around digital mindfulness, online grooming, helping you understand digital well-being as a whole and digital citizenship. So I definitely encourage you to look at our website there. And then we also partnered with Pinterest last May for a digital well-being campaign. And what was really special about this is not only did we produce content specifically for youth, as we normally do, but we produced content for parents, caregivers, and teachers and educators. So parents on there, you will find conversation starters and helpful scripts to begin that conversation of digital well-being and having, digital loneliness and sextortion. And educators, I know a couple of things that I always hear from educators is we have a lot to do already. We don't have time to build maybe a quiz. And so we did try to partner with a couple of educators and we created quizzes as well as flashcards. So you can maybe challenge your students and worksheets about digital mindfulness online, building their digital citizenship, and just being an upstander. So I hope these resources are helpful for you all. I definitely, again, implore you to take a look at the rest of our website. In the presentation, you can click on any one of these and you'll see them. But I will go ahead and I'll stop sharing my screen for right now. And then I think we have time for questions if there are any.
Thank you so much for your presentation. Somebody is asking for the links to be put in the chat. So I don't know if you have those handy.
Yes, I can go ahead and put them in the chat now.
Awesome. Does anyone have any questions?
Hi, sorry I was late. I had a prior meeting, but are you going to share the slides and all the links that were in the slides as well, or what did you say at the beginning of that?
I believe, Lola, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe Digital for Good is going to send that out at the end.
Yeah, we can send out kind of the webinar recap and have those slides sent over too.
That would be fabulous. Thank you so much.
Any other questions I can answer? I see any resources for the 17 to 22 age group too. So these resources can work for 17 to 18-year-olds. We haven't specifically created resources for what we call our young adult demographic, so those 19 to 24. I think for that specific resource, it might be a little bit better to have direct one-on-one conversations because obviously at that point, 19 to 24-year-olds are really already on these different social media platforms, and it might be a different conversation, but hopefully you might find some that are helpful, whether it be a quiz or just a guide in general. You're welcome. Any other questions or concerns? Okay. Lola, I can pass it back to you then if there's no other questions.
Sure. And if people have follow-up questions or if people are watching this later on, please go to the website and then is there a way to contact you?
Yes. So if you go through our website, it's right there. You can contact. I also have LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn. So if you're looking through the resources later on and you have a specific question, feel free to contact me on LinkedIn as well. But we have all of our contact information on the nofilter.org website. And I see there is a request for my LinkedIn. So I will pull that up really quickly and drop that in for everyone.
All right. So as we begin to say goodbye, thank you all so much for attending. As a thank you gift for attending, we are sharing a free digital safety course. I will put that link in the chat. So be sure to check that out. And it is available until the 31st of September. It will guide you to cultivate responsible online behavior, promote digital wellness, and build safer tech spaces for kids and teens. Thank you all so much for being here, and thank you again, Adele, for the incredible presentation. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you all for coming.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.